Hello and welcome to Forward Boldly. I'm your host, Christine Niles. A few years ago, a film was released called Unplanned. It's based on the real-life story of Abby Johnson. She was a former Planned Parenthood abortion mill director and was involved in more than 20,000 abortions. But then she saw some things there that completely changed her life. And now she is a very strong pro-life advocate. There's a gripping scene from that film depicting her after having taken the abortion pill, also known as RU-486. And it is a very stark presentation of what actually happens when you take the abortion pill. It's disturbing, it's not sanitized, and it's bloody, it's messy, and there's a lot of pain, a lot of agony. And it is a perfectly accurate depiction of what actually happens to women when they take the abortion pill. On top of that, the abortion pill is far more dangerous than people let on. All of that and more in this day's show. But before we get into that, I'd like to encourage you to consider attending the Autumn Retreat at Sea. It's Church Militan's first ever retreat at sea in the autumn. And it's going to make stops starts out at New York City. It's going to be making stops in Newport, Rhode Island, Boston, Massachusetts, as well as places in Canada. And it'll be nice, fall season, just as things are cooling down a little bit. It'll involve daily rosary, daily mass, morning prayer, confession, plus a talk by Michael Voris, at least for the port days. And then an optional Q&A session as well. So I've been on many retreats at sea, not in the fall, more in February. Around that time, we go down to the Caribbean usually, and I prefer the warmer weather, but just getting together with like-minded Catholics, being out on the open ocean, meditating on God's greatness and the fact that he's in control of all things, being able to pray the rosary where you're looking out at the sea. Like I said, being around like-minded Catholics and having that fellowship and strengthening of one another in the faith is absolutely invaluable. So all you have to do is go to our website, churchmilitan.com/retreat at sea autumn. And there are little hyphens between each of those words, retreat at sea autumn. I encourage you, sign up. You will love it. And you'll probably be hooked like I am to these. I wanted to return to this topic by reading a couple of testimonies from the Daily Mail from women who did the do-it-yourself abortions through the abortion pill. Now, mifepristone is taken in conjunction with misoprostol. Mifepristone is also known as RU-486. It's been approved by the FDA here in the United States since the year 2000. And in the past several years, it was approved by law to be sent to women by mail. Women don't even need to go and show up for a doctor's appointment. They don't have to do counseling. They simply apply for the pills. You don't even have to prove that you're pregnant, and then you get them in the mail. I'm just going to read from a woman named Emily and her testimony. The nurse told me I might feel a bit of pain, but some women find it harder than others, and some have had periods that are worse. However, within hours of taking the second dose, she was hunched over the toilet, throwing up in a bucket and screaming in agony. I have a high pain tolerance. I've broken bones and suffer chronic migraines, but I've never felt pain like it. I was terrified. 8 weeks after this, she was still bleeding. And here is testimony from a woman named Catherine. I thought an abortion at home would be less traumatic, but at least in hospital under anesthetic, I was pain-free. This was still horrible. I was writhing in agony. I had horrific cramps for 5 hours. If I'd had counseling in a clinic, I think I would have decided to go ahead with the pregnancy. And here is some very interesting testimony. It's actually written by a Satanist, a very pro-abortion Satanist here in Detroit. She chronicled her abortion. She called it Unmother, the Unmothering Project. And I'm not going to read the entire, I'm not going to read the entire description of the actual abortion, but I'm going to read bits of it. Something took hold of my abdomen and began to wring it out. I woke up covered in sweat and blurry-eyed. I vomited. Then I was taken over by electric resonant throbbing. I didn't feel prepared. I expected waves of pain, but this was endless. I bled more. I couldn't lie down, I couldn't stand up, and I couldn't sit. I walked around hunched over, crawled on the floor, sat cross-legged, laid on my side, on my stomach with my feet up and my head down. Then my head up and my feet down, but nothing was comfortable. I was trapped inside of myself. She says the pain, the bleeding, the vomiting went on for hours, and it was agony, until finally her baby was expelled from her in 2 separate clumps. This is the real face of the abortion pill. This is what the public doesn't want you to know. They want you to think, oh, just a little cramping, kind of like periods. It's nothing like that. Nothing like that. As these women who've taken it can say. And, from what I understand, these people are pro-abortion. They support abortion. So this is not some propaganda being put out by pro-lifers. This is what the abortion pill does. Now, how does mifepristone actually work? It's the first drug taken. And what it does is it blocks the pregnancy hormone progesterone. That pregnancy hormone helps facilitate your pregnancy. It's natural. It blocks that. And then you take misoprostol, which then causes the cramps, the bleeding, and then expels your baby from your body. You're interrupting a perfectly natural and healthy process, which is pregnancy, by unnatural means, by chemicals meant to destroy and kill your living child. You can expect your body to go through massive trauma, but it's also emotional trauma. These women are scarred. They're scarred for life. Now, some of them may want to say, no, it was fine. I'm not scarred. I'm glad that I had it. That's sort of the psychological rationalization for this. But a lot of these women, if they're honest with themselves, they are scarred for life. It's a traumatic thing. So anyone thinking, oh, it's less traumatic than going to an abortion mill and having a surgical abortion, you need to think twice about that. That's not necessarily the case. Something else as well is that the abortion pill is much more dangerous than you are led to believe. You can read many articles in the media, CNN, New York Times, reports from Planned Parenthood, any of these organizations, all saying that mifepristone is perfectly safe, with a very small fraction of women experiencing complications. Something that they will not tell you is that the FDA no longer requires these drug manufacturers to report any complications other than death. So when you're seeing these tiny little percentages of, oh, here are some complications, 0.004%, whatever it is, they're referring to deaths, which, yes, is a small portion of the overall number of adverse effects from taking RU486. I want to break down the numbers a little bit just to give you an idea here. There's a 2021 article published in the peer-reviewed medical journal, Issues in Law and Medicine. And this was the title, Deaths and Severe Adverse Events After the Use of Mifepristone as an Abortifacient from September 2000 to February 2019. First, the conclusion from this article, from this report, was that mifepristone is not safe. That was their resounding conclusion. It is not safe. There were 3,197 total adverse effects. 529 were life-threatening, 1,957 were severe, 151 were moderate, 3 were mild, and out of that entire number, 20 deaths. 20 deaths out of 3,197 total adverse effects, most of them either life-threatening or severe. And yet you're only seeing the little number that represents the deaths. And you're being told based on that little number that it's safe. And they are keeping the rest of the stats from you. The industry is being completely dishonest. Anyone who thinks the abortion industry actually cares about you, about your health, about your children, or about women, you need to open your eyes and wake up. The abortion industry is about one thing, and that is profit. That's one of the things that was highlighted in the film Unplanned. It's one of the things that, opened up Abby's eyes, that this is not about care for women. This is about the bottom line. Planned Parenthood, its slogan is care no matter what. Yeah, care about the bottom line no matter what. No matter how many women are injured or killed in abortion. I mean, do you understand out there that abortions are the most profitable thing that Planned Parenthood does? They by far get many thousands more dollars per abortion than for any other service they provide, which is one of the reasons why Planned Parenthood is a massive lobbyist for abortion. It affects their bottom line. So when they say things like, we provide other healthcare services like breast screenings and mammograms, what fraction of their business does that comprise? That it's pure. It's just pure propaganda. It's pure words. It's meant to put forth a certain facade. But anybody who's even studied this even for just a little bit understands. Bottom line is not women's safety. It's not health. None of that. It's money. That's what the industry is about. It's money. And that's what women really need to start understanding here. 6% of women need emergency care after having taken mifepristone. 6% here in this country translates to more than 20,000 women every single year. That's a lot. That's a lot. Now, the abortion pill has become the center of this raging debate now in the United States ever since the reversal of Roe v. Wade by Dobbs v. Jackson. And Dobbs v. Jackson did not ban abortion in the U.S., as a lot of people have mistakenly claimed, including pro-abortion activists, to make it sound as extreme as possible. It did not ban abortion in the United States. All it did was it returned the issue of abortion to the status quo, what it was before Roe v. Wade. And before Roe v. Wade, the status quo was that each state voted on abortion according to the democratic process, and each state decided on its own whether to legalize or criminalize abortion. And so it just returned it to that status quo. Now, today, approximately 13 states have either total or near total bans on abortion. 15 states have certain restrictions, including restrictions on medication abortion, the abortion pill. Some states have passed measures totally legalizing abortion, like here in Michigan. So, like I said, it returned to the status quo from before Roe v. Wade. And on Good Friday of this year, two conflicting rulings came down on the same day, on Good Friday, which I find very, very interesting, on the abortion pill. You've got a state judge in Washington State, Spokane, appointed by Obama, who blocked the FDA from imposing any restrictions on the abortion pill, essentially saying you need to give women wide access, broad access to the abortion pill. And in Texas, you have a contradictory ruling. You have a Texas judge, this one appointed by Trump, who agreed with a group of doctors and medical organizations who filed suit against the FDA, arguing that the FDA's 2000 approval of mifepristone was faulty, that they did not conduct sufficient safety reviews on the drug. As an example, the FDA never conducted any studies on the effect of the abortion pill on women under 18, and yet they approved it for women under 18. That seems to me like major, at a minimum, negligence, if not total malfeasance. And something else that the judge called the FDA out on, among other things, is the FDA fast-tracked the approval of mifepristone. How? By labeling pregnancy a life-threatening illness. Because by labeling it a life-threatening illness, it was given greater latitude to approve mifepristone as a way to remedy that so-called life-threatening illness. And this is what the judge, Matthew Kaczmarek, wrote. Pregnancy is not an illness. Pregnancy is a normal physiological state most women experience one or more times during their childbearing years. a natural process essential to perpetuating human life. Now, the FDA tried to argue that, well, yes, pregnancy is a life-threatening illness because it can cause depression. It can cause psychological disorders and despair and things like that. And the judge, being very logical, said, okay, the fact that it may result in some cases with depression or other psychological problems does not make pregnancy itself a life-threatening condition. That's pretty common sense. Now, the good news is that it is possible within a certain time frame to reverse the effects of the abortion pill. So if, for instance, you've taken mifepristone and 24 hours later you change your mind, you actually get a drug that will reverse the effects by flooding your body with progesterone, which is a natural occurring hormone, as I said, during pregnancy. And that usually works. Now, if you wait longer than that, there's no guarantee. It becomes a bit more sketchy. But the good news is that women can change their minds, and if they do so within a certain time frame, they can reverse the effects of mifepristone. Once you take misoprostol, however, it will not work. Now, a lot of states are, in the face of these conflicting rulings from two different district court judges, which will inevitably, I am sure, go to the U.S. Supreme Court. Because that's what happens when you have a split in the circuits, especially when it's a major issue like abortion. It will usually go to the U.S. Supreme Court to resolve. So I predict this is going to be the next big abortion case. How the Supreme Court's going to resolve it, I'm not sure. But many pro-lifers were very pleased with the reasoning in Dobbs v. Jackson. We know that it's a Catholic majority court. Some of them are not practicing Catholics, but we do have an Episcopalian who is very pro-life and very conservative who joined in with the Catholic pro-life majority on Dobbs v. Jackson. So this is something that we need to pray about. We need to keep praying about this. Some other good news. Since the ban on abortion in multiple states, in those particular states, abortions have dropped by approximately 96%. For example, from July to December 2022, these 13 states, saw an average of 7,325 fewer abortions per month compared to the April and May just before Roe v. Wade. So that is some good news. That's some good news to rejoice in, and we need to keep praying that the hearts of the people of this country would change and we would start to value life and we start to value children. I want to play, on that note, I want to play a little clip that was floating around on Twitter. Let's go ahead and play that.
So I went to the gyno yesterday for my annual exam, and the doctor comes in, we're talking for a little bit, and I'm 28 years old. He asked me if I'm planning on having children anytime soon. You mean on purpose? In this day and age, you think I'm trying to have a child? In our society, where we don't have any rights, don't have freedom, can't send your child to school without worrying that there might be a mass shooting. You think I'm trying to have a child on purpose? I don't think so.
So some people reacted to this with anger. Other people said, oh, I'm really glad that people like her aren't spawning. They're not going to spawn because they don't deserve it. Very, very upset. I look at that just as a woman and as a mother, and I think this is so sad. So sad. Women like you have no idea what you are missing. I hope you're enjoying the show. The rest of the show is behind the paywall, so please go to churchmilitant.com to watch the rest. For those who are not premium subscribers, you can sign up at churchmilitant.com/go premium. See you there.